Welcome to episode 42 of the Everyday Sens podcast. I'm Jack Richardson, joined as always by Brennan Parks. Brennan, we have Sens hockey to break down officially. Two preseason games in the books. We are recording this on Tuesday morning/afternoon, and we wanted to wait so we could break down both games against the Leafs. Obviously, the Sens take both 3-2 in regulation at home on Sunday afternoon, and then last night, Monday night, an overtime win over the Leafs 4-3. The big dogs were just that they were big dogs. They were great players, a lot of depth stuff to get into. So like quick thoughts here. How you doing today? And on just the first view of the 2023-24 season. How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, I felt really good. I mean, obviously last night, like Ottawa rolled their top dogs in the first game. They played that whole top line of Giroux, Tkachuk, and Stützle. So we kind of hoped they would win that game. Then Toronto played Matthews, Marner, in their top line last night. So that those guys were out there, and obviously Bertuzzi too. So then Toronto was kind of expected to win last night. Would have been nice to see those guys go up against each other, but I guess this is how they preferred to do it. So Ottawa, regardless, wins both games. I mean, last night I certainly didn't expect them to win considering the rosters, and yet one of my biggest takeaways, and this is going to be funny for Toronto fans, is that I thought Toronto's guys looked pretty bad. So that was something I enjoyed. Like Klingberg really struggled out there, I thought, and just a few guys didn't look so good, and that gave me confidence. I feel a lot better about playing Toronto in the regular season now. I know it's preseason. We have to be hesitant. Oh, maybe guys aren't trying. It's an easy excuse, right? When things don't go your way, you can say, oh, it's preseason. The guy's not trying. But as Tim Stützle so eloquently put it after the first game, he came out and said, listen, it's all about winning, right? Like preseason, regular season, we don't care. It's all about winning. We want to win. We want to set ourselves up for success this season. And I think the preseason gives them a great chance to do that, which is why it sucks to not have Shane Pinto too, right? Is because everybody's kind of rolling here. Like, I don't think they could have asked for a better start to the preseason. I mean, everything went right. Like, literally everything went right. They even went to overtime in the second game, held a lead for almost the whole game, and then 4 seconds left, Marner scored. Just a bounce went to him, and then they go into overtime and they win, and it's even more exciting. So, like, I just don't think that things could have gone even better for them. I think they're feeling like really, really good now. And again, it's preseason, but like if you finish the preseason with the vibe that they have right now, I think you're feeling a lot better about the regular season than we were like even a week ago. Like I feel more confident after seeing these guys play, especially because of health, right? Like we're going to get into takeaways, but Anton Forsberg coming back, looking fully healthy, key to the season right there. Absolute, like that's so important. Even Chikrin and Shabbat left last season with injuries. They looked extremely healthy, like perfect condition in yesterday's game. So a lot of takeaways. I think my biggest one is probably health, that everybody's looking healthy and recovered from a full summer, which is awesome to see. But yeah, we can get into takeaways and your thoughts on these two victories, and Ottawa's 2-0.
Yeah, look, and like we say, we're not going to bear the lead. It was two preseason games, so for the Sens and Leafs, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But it's better than losing both. That's how I see it, right? A win is a win. And it's more to me like, and we'll just kind of get into this, like the back-to-back wins. Who are your standouts? Like it's there's a lot to talk about. We were talking before we started recording. There's so many players to get into, so we're going to try and cover everyone we can. But obviously, there's more preseason to come, so we have a lot of time. But to me, like all I noticed right away, and obviously I was looking for certain guys in the first game. I was looking at how the top line looked and blah blah blah. But in both games, what I realized, the Sens came ready to play. Like obviously 2-0 leads in both first periods is going to do that. But they were more ready to play. And again, it's preseason. It doesn't really matter for the Leafs, but top player wise, it did. And the Sens top guys came out and as much of a statement as you can make in a preseason game, they made one, right? And you got to be careful because we can, first of all, the team can fall into this trap, but we can too, of being like, oh, this is what they are. They're going to be dangerous. And like, that's all true. But to me, it just sets the tone for what they're expecting of themselves this season. So the key is going to be following this, because let's not forget, last year they had a decent preseason as well, played Montreal 4 times, beat up them. And then they roll into October in the season, and they actually did pretty well in October. They didn't have a bad record. I think they were 4-2. Norris went down at the end of the month, and then November they fell off a cliff. So when you heard it, DJ say it in the press conferences and stuff, like it's not their start this season. It's November. It's kind of the game 7 to 20 stretch that they need to be better at, because they ride that adrenaline high for a long time. So I'm curious to see how they do, obviously, but right now all we can do is analyze what we've seen. And what I saw personally for me is just the big players came to play. It wasn't a scenario where, yeah, the depth battles were the reason the team was winning. They were certainly good, and like all those players definitely elevated their game, and we will talk about that. But to me, biggest takeaway was the top players were just the top players. Like Tim Stützle was the best player on the ice on Sunday's game. Sorry, excuse me, Jake Sanderson, his teammate, the guy picked 2 picks after him. He was the best player on the ice. Then it was Tim Stützle. Like the 2 top players on the Sens were those guys, best player on either team. And then you go to last night, Jacob Chychrun, best player on the ice by a mile between both teams. So to me, that's what the headline I took from it. And obviously we'll get into like certain players and depth battles and everything, but who caught your eye immediately in the 2 games?
So obviously the top guys you just mentioned are the big ones because they like Stützle, Sanderson, Chychrun. Those were kind of the 3 best skaters in my opinion. I think that they really stood out. Like Chychrun last night, and I think we should actually compare him to Shabbat a little bit after, just because I have some thoughts on both. But Chychrun, I felt very confident when he had the puck. Like every time he would touch the puck, he's so smooth. And in last season, we only got to see him for 12 games. This is what other fan bases forget. It's like he's been here for 4 years, according to everybody else, because we literally only had him for 12 games. I can hardly even remember him playing. Like, to actually see him out there and fully healthy, so smooth with the puck. I mean, in overtime, obviously, he scores the game winner. But that shot, the first one, can we talk about that shot? That is just, like, it's the same goal he scored last year against Columbus. Like, almost the exact same, where he just, like, pulls it. But it was a rolling puck. Like, I can't even understand how he did that. It was a rolling puck. He corrals it, and then just, like you couldn't even see it. If you blinked, you'd missed it because the shot must have been like 100 plus miles per hour. It's insane. Like it went bar down and just beat Joseph Wall clean. So that shot, I think, and this is another discussion, is that was from the right side, which is where he likes to shoot, but he's actually playing the left side and Shabbat's playing the right side. So there's a bit of confusion there. I'd like to hear DJ's reasoning for that. But either way, I'm sure they've discussed it. If Chychrun is shooting like that this year, I mean, he's going to score like 20 plus goals. That's an insane shot. I don't think many goalies are going to be stopping that. If he gets the chances, and Ottawa's going to be able to get him the puck with their playmakers. So I think he Sanderson, and Stützle were the best players on the ice. I think most people would expect them to be in the preseason since they're playing against a lot of depth guys, despite Toronto playing some of their top guys last night too. But at the same time, like, to me, Austin Matthews didn't look that good last night. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he kind of looked like he was maybe like half-assing it a bit. And again, not a bad thing. It's preseason, but like, if we have the choice between someone really trying and wanting to win, like Tim said the other day, and then a guy kind of playing a little bit lazily and not really caring that much, like, I'm taking the guy who wants to win. I don't care if it's preseason. Like, I'm not leaving the preseason games feeling, like I'm screaming and yeah, like, no, I'm not doing that. But at the same time, it feels pretty damn good to win. Like, winning back-to-back games against Toronto to open our hockey year is pretty nice in my mind. So regardless, I think I love seeing their top guys trying. Chychrun, Stützle, Sanderson, those are the 3. I will say my number 1 standout after those guys, and maybe even above those guys, Anton Forsberg and Mads Søgaard, like goaltending in general. I thought they both had like excellent performances on Sunday and Monday. Forsberg looks great. We've got the caption up. He looked just like coming off of 2 MCL tears. I wasn't expecting much. I was kind of holding my breath, thinking, okay, maybe he's going to struggle a little bit. He's going to have some rust, right? But he spent the whole summer recovering. I think he stayed in Ottawa, and he just spent the whole summer like getting back on it. He was back on the ice as quick as he could be. He did some media availabilities, and he said he was feeling great. So now it was just about showing us. To start him in the first preseason game, I love that decision. Get him back out there right away, see what he's got. I'm sure he asked them if he could start in that game because he was so antsy, and he looked perfect. Like, he looked great. He was moving laterally. He had probably like 6 or 7 plays where he slid laterally across to stop a one-timer or a little tap-in on the back door, which was really, really impressive because, again, MCL, his knees, both of his knees went on the same play. Knees being so critical to movement for a goaltender. Very important. Good to see him sliding so well. And, like, I have no concerns exiting that game. Hopefully his knees aren't, on the verge of breaking again, and we're not going to, one little play is going to cause something because we can't afford goaltender injuries this year. But at the same time, Mads Søgaard looked really good last night. I'm going to post a few clips after this, after we're done recording, and I've got like a handful from Søgaard just because like he made a lot of good saves. He stopped Marner probably 3 or 4 times on grade A chances. And even in the last minute there before Toronto tied it, he made a couple of huge saves. So Søgaard obviously is going to be competing with Meriläinen for AHL starting time in net. But I think a key there is he played 19 games last year. He looked decent. He wasn't great, but he did his job. This year, I feel more confident if Korpisalo or Forsberg gets hurt, especially now that I've seen Søgaard again. It looks like maybe he's taking another step. Brady's looking a little more confident. Thought his movement looked a lot better. He looked more sure of himself. which was good to see. And now maybe if somebody goes down, they've got Sogard and Marilainen, who looked really good in the rookie tournament. You got both those guys waiting in the wings just for a chance. So I feel much better than last year about the goalies, and that was kind of my biggest takeaway through the first 2 games.
Yeah, and the thing is, we haven't even seen Corpusalo, like the biggest fish they signed in free agency. Obviously, that'll come tomorrow night in Montreal. On Wednesday, we'll look to see if Josh Norris makes the trip because they said they will hold him out of the first two. So he's kind of the question mark going into tomorrow's game. But we'll get into that. We might even not even talk about that depending on time here, because there's a lot to talk about, obviously. And goaltending is a great option because Forsberg looked great. Excuse me. A unique thing the Sens are doing is letting the goalies play the entire game. That's the first time they've done that. They split the games last season, I believe, in preseason for most of them anyway. So to me, this is kind of what I was speaking to, is like letting the big players play minutes, because I was watching the first game with my dad on Sunday, and he was saying, oh, imagine if Stützle gets hurt or if someone gets hurt here. And like, yeah, that would suck. But to me, I kind of have a different view on it. Like, they're going to play regardless. It would make no difference to me anyway if Tim Stützle goes down in the next game he plays in the preseason, or if it's in the first game of the regular season. Like, I want them playing. I want them hitting the ground running. And to do that, they have to play. And that we're going to get into that in a second here with ice time, because a lot of heads were turned, especially last night after Chabot and Chychrun played a ton of minutes. But I think with the goaltending, it makes sense too. Why not give your goalie a full game? It just makes way too much sense. Get them comfortable in the rhythm, get them, seeing every shot, because you never know. Like if Forsberg only played half the game on Sunday, the Leafs didn't really turn it up until midway through the second anyway. So he wouldn't have had that action. He wouldn't have had to battle. And then he gets that onslaught in the third period. He gets all that action. Like, it's just good. And same with Mads Sogard, like having both of them play. And I think having your goalies play the whole game kind of gives the green light to the regular players, the top guys like Chychrun, Sanderson, Chabot, and the top forwards to, like, let's just play. Let's just go out and play. And when you mentioned, you said that Matthews and I don't know if you said Marner, but like they didn't look great. And again, it's preseason. They're not supposed to look great. But that to me just kind of says the mentality the Sens have. It's like we went through this last year. We were excited. They all came early last summer and skated around a lot. They played preseason and kind of, like, I don't want to say nonchalantly, but it was pretty casual in preseason. Nothing crazy happened. But then they falter in the season. So clearly the team now has a different mentality because they know they have to succeed, that they're hitting the ground running by playing all these minutes. And let's just get into ice time right now, because it's probably the biggest, I wouldn't say concern, but let's just talk about it. Okay. So the defense yesterday, obviously Chabot played 31 minutes. Chychrun played 29. Sanderson in a non-overtime game played 27. And I have the caption here on YouTube is "Let the big dogs eat" with a question mark, because I'm going to pose it like to everyone in the comments too. Like let us know. And Brennan, I'll throw it to you right now. Do you think they're playing too much for the first preseason game of the year? Like, do you think that's too much?
I mean, like, yes, on paper, but at the same time, to me, it's if they stay healthy, then no one's gonna question it. In my opinion, like, you're not gonna wear these guys out through a few games in the preseason. Like, they're rotating every game. These guys probably won't even be playing next game again tomorrow. So it's like they get a lot of days off. Now, if somebody gets hurt and they played 30 minutes, like if Shabbat got hurt last night or Chychrun and he's playing like almost 30 minutes, then people are going to really start to question DJ Smith, because it's like, why are you playing him that much? Now he's hurt. Now he's out. I do agree with your point, though, of like they could get hurt literally at any point. I mean, it's a little bit unnecessary to play them this much, I think, but at the same time, when they're looking so good, and I mean, you have to assume, like, we're not in the room, but you have to assume that some of these guys are saying that they're, they want to play these minutes. They want to get warmed up to get a good start on the year, because like I said earlier, although preseason results don't matter, like it's not a results-oriented game, like it still matters to the players. I mean, look at how some of these guys played last night and kind of how much better they looked at the end of the game than the beginning, and shaking off that rust, and now they're going to be ready to go in the regular season, because a strong start is everything this year. Like if they have another bad start, that's it. And the last 4 years, there was a graphic. I think it was like the last 4 years, each of the last 4 years, they ranked like 28th or lower after the first 20 games or something crazy like that in each of those years. It's like these guys know that. They've talked about it. The players, the coaches, management, everybody has talked about it. They have to do something different. Like, if that means playing 30 minutes in a preseason game to get yourself going, like, then do it. Like, you have to do something different than we did in years past because it just wasn't good enough. And frankly, like, even the past 4 years, they had a lot of their guys. Like, you can't even blame injuries for the first starts because most of the guys were healthy to start the year the last 4 years. So I don't know what the issue was, but like, you got to be better this year. So I think this is changing things up. Like you said, giving the goalies a full game too, it kind of gets them back in that game feeling, lets them get more action, but also just back in that whole feeling of like the game is up to them basically. So I do like the minutes. I think that 30 minutes is a little crazy considering they usually don't even do that in a regular season game with overtime, but it happens, right? And they really relied on Shabbat and Chikrin last night, and I thought they did a good job against that Matthews-Marner duo and Bertuzzi too. They limited them, all things considered, and played pretty nice. So Sanderson too, 27 minutes the other night. Like, it is what it is, right? I mean, these guys are workhorses. They can all handle the load. It's not, like I said, they're not going to get fatigued and exhausted from this. There was actually, I should have screenshotted it, late in the third period, like as the time was winding down, they zoomed in on Chikrin's face, and he had played 27, 28 minutes to that point, and he wasn't even breathing hard. Like, he was just standing there, and I was like, I looked at the ice time, and I was like, this guy's going to be dead. He's going to be dead as a horse. No. He was like just standing there. He was ready to go, and then obviously scores the overtime winner. Played a bunch in overtime too, I think. So it's I'm not worried about it, but at the same time, DJ's gonna be kind of like digging his own grave a bit if somebody does get hurt because people are gonna be calling at him. But whatever, right? Like I like the decision to play them a lot of minutes, and again, I'm sure that they are on board with it as well. So yeah.
I got to be honest, I'm kind of disappointed that you're so on board with it because I was very on board with it. And I kind of bit my tongue on Twitter when I saw some stuff about it because, look, and I think right before we started recording, Dave Poulin went on TSN 1200 and he essentially said it's not a bad thing for Shabbat to be playing that much. An even better argument for Shabbat playing so much. And actually, before I even say that, there was a point in the game where he got caught out there for like 3 minutes, just hemmed in his own end. So the 31 versus 20, like it's pretty give or take for Shabbat and Chikrin. They should be. I'm sure their ice time was pretty normal, except for when Shabbat got caught out there. But the reps is what it's all about for every player, right? Even like Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk. Like Tkachuk actually said before the last preseason game, he said, the mentality for me personally, this is Tkachuk, he said, I just want to make sure my lungs and my legs are there. So I'm maybe doing things I wouldn't try in a game, like maybe staying out a bit longer on a shift or something like that, just to make sure he can do it. Because if you get caught in those scenarios in game 1, 2, 3, or 10 or whatever, you want to be ready. So with Shabbat, it's even better though because he's playing the right side, which I do want to talk about, like that pairing of Chikrin and Shabbat, just how they looked. You mentioned them against Matthews and Marner, and to me, it's like this is the best time to do it. Obviously, it's preseason. Like, try stuff out, and if Shabbat comes back after this game and says, "You know what, boys, I don't think I can play the right side," then you pivot from there because he's got 31 minutes of a sample to talk about it from. The thing, another thing though, like I know that there's this consensus that Shabbat would play better under less minutes. And until we see it, I'm not going to believe it. So if you know what you have, and I'm defending the coaches a little bit here, it'll be less defendable as we go on through the year and as Sanderson gets even better and as Chikrin develops even, or gets more comfortable. But like when you know what you have with Shabbat playing 25 plus, it's still not a bad thing, right? So like in a pinch, they can roll out. They like I've got Shabbat, Chikrin, and Sanderson obviously in 2 different games at 27 plus minutes. They have the ability. They have 3 workhorses on the back end that they can play that much. So it's not ideal, but again, let's go way down the line. Let's go to playoffs. Let's talk playoffs. If you're in a 5 overtime game or a 4 overtime game or whatever, and you need a win, the Sens blue line is elite for that because they've got 3 absolute horses back there, and they wouldn't have to worry about sitting one of them or something like that. Like that's obviously way down the line, and in regular season doesn't matter for that. But I think it's important to remember though that these guys are different beasts. Like they're used to it. And we talked even before we were recording. Mitch Marner played like 26 minutes last night, and I bet you people in Toronto, I don't even know if they're turning their heads. I know a couple times last year he definitely played way too much, and they were saying it's affecting his game or whatever. But that's what top guys do. They play a lot, and I think when Shabbat is playing a ton, I think he maybe over a season it wears on him a little bit, and he does get injured sometimes, like and things like that. But reality of it is they're a better team when he's on the ice usually, and it has been like that for a long time. So I really don't hate him playing a ton of minutes, especially in the preseason. Like, get your feet wet, get going on the season. I have no problem with it.
So what did you think of Shabbat last night specifically? Because I think we should talk about him a little bit and Chikrin. So What I kind of meant, so Shabbat playing the right side, obviously there's a little bit of a dynamic there. It changes. He's got to obviously defend a bit differently in the offensive zone too. Like he's got the puck on his forehand towards the middle of the ice instead of where it would normally be towards the boards in the defensive zone, so making exit passes. I thought he actually made some really good exit passes. Like that looked even better than before to me because he had a little more space to kind of maneuver into open ice and then look and make a pass. He had probably, I have clips of it, 2 or 3 stretch passes for breakaways. He set up Joseph once, like straight up the gut, and gave him a perfect feed for a breakaway. He set up Greg on one where he flicked it up from, I think, behind the net, and then Greg got tripped and drew a penalty. So that's all Shabbat making those plays. I thought he looked great passing. Through the first period, maybe period and a half, I was on the verge of tweeting, he looks like the best player on the ice. I thought he looked phenomenal. He looked dynamic. I talked about it last year. He didn't look dynamic enough to me. He was making a lot of unforced errors. He wasn't skating with the puck. He wasn't making good passes. Like, I don't know if it was tired or it was just like a down year. It happens, right? Last night, though, I thought that dynamic kind of presence came back. He looked like he was a little more confident. And then right when I was about to tweet that, like it was along the right side of the boards, on the right side, he got the puck at the red line on his backhand, and this is where the dynamic changes on the right side because he has to kind of make different decisions, right? He got it though, and he's the last man back. There's nobody behind him, and there's a Leafs player coming towards him, and he just flicks a backhand at the Leafs player, and the guy blocks it and goes in for a breakaway and goes right around him. And I have a clip of that too, and I just like why would you do that? It's just one of those like boneheaded plays that Shabbat can't be making because that's not him. Like he's dynamic. He's supposed to be someone who makes the right plays. And in that situation, I want him to grab the puck and skate it back and turn around and find a better route, right? Take the extra few strides. Instead, he almost panics a bit. He gets the puck and he immediately just like fires it to nowhere and it just gets blocked and goes the other way for a breakaway. Those are the plays that frustrate me with Shabbat because it's unforced. Like that did not have to happen. He could have made a better play. And it's preseason, whatever, but that was exactly his issue last year too, is he was making those plays that cost the Sens, and it shouldn't be happening with your top guys. So I'm hoping that he can kind of clean up some of the mistakes because that's what's really killing me right now for Shabbat. Notably too, I think if anything last night, it kind of showed that Chychrun should be running the first power play unit in my mind. I think that if you can get that shot on there, you have to. Even if I thought Chychrun did a good job walking the line too and kind of passing around, but just having that shot is completely lethal. And the power play is another thing we should mention because Ottawa scored, I don't know how many power plays. I think they scored 2 of their 3 goals in the first game on the power play, and last night they might have scored 2 more on the power play, something like that. But like the power plays looked really good, and obviously the lineups are kind of mixed through those 2 games too, but like they looked phenomenal in both games. So I'm really excited to see more of that. But yeah, I think Chychrun should be on the first unit, and it should be Shabbat or Sanderson on the second unit. I don't think they'll take Shabbat off, but like Sanderson, man, how do you keep him off the ice? Do you put them both on? I don't know. It's a good battle, good issue to have. Like I said, though, for Shabbat, I just want him to clean up some of the errors because, frankly, the way that I look at it, and I looked at it last year when Chychrun played, but last night too, when Chychrun has the puck on his stick, I feel like the utmost confidence. I don't feel any worry. I feel good. I feel like he's going to make the right play. I'm not holding my breath at all. When Shabbat has the puck on his stick, I feel nervous. I feel like he's going to mess up. He's going to make the wrong play, turn the puck over. And I didn't feel like that before last year, so it sucks that it's kind of come to that. And I'm not saying Shabbat's like a bad player or anything. He still does a lot of things right. I just need to see his game get refined a little bit more because right now, to me, and I want to hear your thoughts, to me, Shabbat is the third defenseman after Chychrun and Sanderson in my mind on the depth chart. And it sucks because, like I said, he's probably still a top 30 defenseman. He just needs to refine his game and clean it up. And I think he'll have the chance to do that this year because he's got more support than he has ever had in his career. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I can see that, and it's almost not even a knock on Thomas Chabot. Like Jacob Chychrun has been a Norris candidate before, right? Like that one season where he had 18 goals. I think he can challenge that this year, by the way, depending where he is on the power play, and I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, look, Chabot with me, and I had the same problem last year. I think you and I are on the same page with that. I was a little harder on him, I think, than maybe most were, or maybe I should have been, but like I felt last season with him, he just felt a step behind. And I don't want to say I saw the same thing last night because he did play well. And look, the thing with Chabot, he's a great skater and he's very smooth when he gets going. The thing with him, and that's different with Sanderson and even Chychrun to an extent, the other two are more agile, right? And when you're a defenseman, you have to be agile in the corners. That's how you get puck battles and all of that. And that was my frustration with Chabot last year, is like as soon as he was under a little bit of pressure from a fast forechecker or like a winger on the wall in the offensive zone, he just kind of looked like he was a little hesitant. And I think when he's low on confidence, that's going to happen and all of that. And you can learn to live with that. But I know what you mean. Like there's a couple times where he gets the puck, and I don't know if like the right side's only going to hurt that until he gets super comfortable there. Um, in that he just panics. I think he just panics. And yeah, he's a gifted offensive defenseman. That's not going to change. But it's, I'd almost go as far as to say like in the offensive zone, he's fine usually. Power play struggled a little bit last year, but like overall, especially last night, a couple times him and Chikrin were snapping it around. Left and right didn't matter when they were in the offensive zone, which is good. It's how it should be. And to me, it's just when he has the puck in your own end. I know what you mean. I know what you mean about the confidence thing, and it's hard to kind of quantify. But and even I follow hockey stat cards on Twitter, and they post like game scores after every game, and it's good, not a visual. It's good analytics for the visual of what you see. And I was surprised. Shabbat had like a perfect game. He was in the positives for defense, offense, and I was a little bit surprised. Like he played well, but I was just like there were a couple times where he just looked a little out of place. Like a perfect example, and I'm not trying to nitpick, and obviously he's still a top defenseman, but I agree with you. I think he's their third best right now, which is still not a knock on him, but he is. It was the penalty kill because him and Chikrin were out there. Obviously, I don't know if that was on purpose. I don't know if they want Shabbat on the penalty kill, but he was on the right side, and it was that quick tic-tac-toe goal of Toronto's second power play unit. I think it was Easton Cowan in the slot there. Like he just like he got put in the spin cycle by passes from AHL players, and it wasn't like a crazy play that happens. All the Sens run that all the time, and like he's part of it. So he just looked a little out of place there, and I think we as fans we just got to come to accept what Shabbat is, and defensively it's going to be a roller coaster a little bit, which is okay because you got Chikrin and your team's good enough. But yeah, I was just a little bit like I'm wary every time he's got the puck now. But then he goes in the third period. He had a great rush and he hit the post, like he had a great shot. He's still a fantastic skater, great passes, great puck moving defenseman, but just a little bit more from him sometimes. And I do want to admit, like when I first saw him last night, I'm like, okay, he's got the same pace. Like he has the exact same pace he had last season. So that's what we're working with right now. Whereas other guys like Stutzel even and maybe Sanderson and Chikrin look like they took a step this summer. And if Shabbat didn't, that's okay, but you got to go from there. And he probably won't be the number one defenseman on the Sens.
Yeah, and I think Shabbat, you said it, like it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster defensively, and that's what it's always been because he came into the league as an offensive defenseman out of the QMJHL. Like they drafted him as an offensive defenseman. The problem for me was that last year he wasn't giving us enough offense. Like you look at Erik Karlsson, like you can have a rough time defensively in the defensive zone, but like you have to be able to produce offensively. You can't also struggle offensively because then you're just struggling as a whole. Like it has to be one or the other. If you're gonna, be struggling in the defensive zone, you have to give back on offense. And Shabbat, like I said, he just wasn't dynamic enough last year, and he produced a decent amount of points. That's fine, but like it's easy to tally assists with the Sens firepower that they have up front. Like I'm not even looking at points. I'm looking at his actual like skating ability. When is he carrying the puck? Is he exiting the zone well? Is he making good passes? Like I just didn't see it enough last year, and there was a few nice rushes last night, but like again, when he gets caught and he makes these turnovers, I feel like he almost gets caught flat-footed in a way where he's a great skater, but like he'll be standing in one spot looking for a pass, and then suddenly the pressure will kind of close in on him.
It's the agility. He just doesn't have that quick first step, which is
yeah.
okay, but it gets exposed a lot.
But he's got to like kind of make up for that. Like he should keep moving. Like don't stand still. Like keep moving around because he's he's a fluid skater. Once he gets going, he just needs to be able to get going because like he'll get caught behind the net too, where he'll be looking around. A pass won't open up, and then like instead of skating it out where he's got space, he'll just like fire it up the boards. And it's like, well, you could have just carried that instead of turning it over, right? So I think there's a little bit more that we want from Shabbat, but at the same time, he is still a steady defenseman as a whole. Like he does good things, and obviously DJ Smith is still seemingly going to play him more than Chikrin and Sanderson most nights. So that'll be something to monitor, but it's not a bad thing. He's a good defenseman. It's a good problem to have. Like saying he's the number 3 on Ottawa is like he'll still be the number 1 on a handful of teams in the league. So it's really not like a knock on him at all, but we should just mention that we want to see a little more out of him. And I think that it's only becoming a little more prevalent for Sens fans now because we're seeing how good Chikrin and Sanderson are. So we're no longer spoiled by only having like Shabbat. Like he was the only guy on Ottawa's defense that was any sort of dynamic for how many years, right? And going back to like 2019. And then Chikrin and Sanderson come in, these 2 elite defensemen, and now you're like, okay, well, we're comparing him now to somebody instead of it just being the Shabbat show when the team has no expectations. Now it's, well, we've got 3 elite number 1 defensemen, and the team has to win. So every time Shabbat makes a mistake now, it's like, well, Chikrin looks so good on that last shift, and then Shabbat does that, right? So it's a little bit different how we think of it now.
it is preseason again. We should like
Yeah,
it's been one game, and most of the guys look great. Shabbat honestly looked pretty good, all things considered. Coming off of an injury, I know in the summer it was a little bit maybe like in the air about his health and everything at the golf tournament. Like we weren't sure, but he's fine. He was good to go for camp, and like he looked good. He just didn't look great, which is a-okay. Like he can be good. The thing with him though now is like for 3 years, which is an insane amount of time. He was paired with Nikita Zaitsev, right? And last year, I think he had like 6 different partners or something like that. So if he can have some kind of stability with anyone on the roster for a D partner, those excuses go out the window. Like I know there's a lot of people who like to bring up DJ ran him into the ground with a shitty, or pardon my French, with a bad defenseman in Nikita Zaitsev, and that's why he's struggling or whatever. Like that's fine, but that's out the window now. Like you can't use that as an excuse. And I'm not saying Shabbat is, he's not, but if there's people kind of talking about why he's not doing well, like okay, we can talk all day about that, but the fact of the matter is he's got to play like a top defenseman. So anyway, it is preseason. A lot can change, and there's still 3 weeks to go until the season starts. So we got a lot of time. And obviously, it was not the end of the world. They still made it happen. Also, just realized there I misspelled Chikrin, I believe. So that's a fun.
I fixed it for you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So let's get into the depth battles that were happening a little bit, because there are some good guys that we haven't even touched on yet, and it was just a good couple games. Like I felt feeling very confident about the Sens this year, even though a couple key names didn't even play yet. Then Josh Norris, Jonas Korpisalo, Eric Brandstrom, like none of them even touched the ice. Support for Everyday Sens podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SENS20 at manscaped.com. The Performance Package 4.0 arrived for me, and honestly, guys, it's a game changer. I didn't really think I needed half the stuff in there, but once you start using it, you realize how important the hygiene is in that down their area. I think men's hygiene is kind of overlooked a lot of the time. And in this day and age, it's kind of on its way back up, or even just back in general. So the Performance Package includes the Lawnmower 4.0, which is the main trimmer. They've got a nose and hair trimmer as well, including a bunch of deodorant products for that down their area. And it's honestly like they include a wash kit, a t-shirt, a pair of underwear. It's the full works in that Performance Package. Even if you don't think you need all of that stuff, I recommend just trying out the Lawnmower 4.0, excuse me. One of the products alone is worth the time and the price, especially with Everyday Sens promotion with the Sens 20 code. So again, that's get 20% off and free shipping with the code SENS20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use code SENS20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Now let's get back to the Everyday Sens podcast. So let's get into death battles. First one I'm going to kick over to you is, I believe it was yours, kind of. Yeah, Brandstrom hasn't played, but your battle to watch, which was Brandstrom versus Tyler Klevin. I'm just going to throw JBD in there as well, because he's also, it's his spot to lose. Twice Pierre Dorion said that this summer. So what did you think about JBD and Klevin on Sunday's game I guess at 1 p.m. Yeah, on Sunday afternoon against the Leafs?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we didn't get to see Brandstrom, but obviously we saw him for like all of last season, so we can use that as a large enough sample size to see where his game is at. Honestly, like I didn't think that they played poorly, but there were very few players I left feeling like I wanted more from, and I felt like that from Klevin and JBD, sorry, especially Klevin. And again, preseason, and he's young, and he's expected to start in the AHL anyways, but we've talked about it. Like, if he has a really good camp, he could push Brandstrom out. Like, they have spoken so highly of Klevin, Pierre Dorion especially, who makes the ultimate decision here. And like, if Klevin had a really good camp, I think that, especially because of this Pinto debacle, I think that he would have considered moving, or he would consider moving Brandstrom out and just giving the role to Klevin right here, because Klevin, obviously, like, he's a perfect fit on that bottom pairing stylistically. But yeah, I left feeling like I wanted a little more out of Klevin in that first game. He played 20-43, and he didn't really have much on the stat sheet. He took a penalty, but he I noticed that he was looking like not as dynamic, like not dynamic, but not as smooth as we saw last year at the end of the season. Thought he had a few really bad turnovers. Like there was one behind the net where he was just standing still and he waited for like so long, and the player came in, closed on him, but he just like didn't skate the puck out. He just passed it in front of Ottawa's net, and they got turned over and they almost scored. So there's a few moments where he almost seemed like he got caught panicking a little bit, or flat-footed a little bit, sort of like we talked about with Shabbat. But Clevin obviously is not that same type of skater. He's someone who needs to kind of move the puck a bit quicker, make decisions faster, because he's not that dynamic skater. So regardless, I think that he played fine. I'm not going to say bad. I just thought that he made some turnovers and had some issues that I wasn't kind of expecting based on what we saw at the end of last year. Again, first preseason game though, so like give him some time. By all accounts, he's looked good in camp. We just need to see a little bit more out of him. And I think like based on that game, I'm not pushing him over Brandstrom in any more than I was before. Like if he came up and blew the doors off, I'd be saying the complete opposite, in the sense that maybe now Brandstrom's name is getting shopped around a bit more and Clevin's starting to push his way in. But here I'm still thinking like they probably watched that game, watched the film after, and said like, we're still going to plan to start Clevin in the AHL. I think he could benefit from maybe just some like adapting to the pro league, the speed of it, and the AHL is a good chance to do that. Because again, he never even played in the AHL. Like he came from the NCAA to the NHL. There's really no reason to have Clevin starting in the NHL this year. Like it's just kind of rushing it, and it's unforced. So Bernard Docker too, he hit one post and then Sokolov almost scored. That was a beautiful shot. But otherwise, I think he was kind of under the radar. I didn't notice a lot of bad things about him, but not a lot of good things either. And that's like the player he is he's kind of just there, which isn't bad. Like if he's not making mistakes, and I'm not going to complain, like that's his role. He's kind of that depth guy who just is like a steady player, steady defenseman. But at the same time, I think for Bernard Docker to beat out a guy like Travis Hamonic, who, is on that, he can't be moved or anything, and he's going to be there as at least the seventh defenseman pushing him. I think they're probably planning on playing Hamonic. Like DJ loves Hamonic, Pierre loves Hamonic, everybody loves Hamonic, and it's going to be hard to push him out from a veteran standpoint. So it would take a lot on the ice for Bernard Docker to push him out, especially if he's going to be playing with Brandstrom or Clevin, like a young guy. It's just, I don't really see it happening. I think it will be Hamonic there. But Bernard Docker could be the 7. I just want to see more out of him too. Because like for as much as he's just a steady guy, you need to see something at some point. Like you need to see him making a play, like throw a big hit. Like I mean, I remember when he played for the Canadian World Junior team, he threw a massive hit and he was like their shutdown defenseman, and he looked so good in that role. And we just haven't seen that translate to the bigger game. Like guys seem just a little bit quicker than him, a step faster. So I want to see a bit more from him in that regard. But overall, not blown away by either of Clevin or Bernard Docker in the first game. But again, only game 1. We're gonna see more. They've looked good in camp. So what did you think about that and maybe our next battle here?
Yeah, so the thing with Clevin is we said it before, he's got to knock the door down, and it's not just because he's young and like I think Brandstrom's better or whatever. But, like I could see an argument for both, and quite frankly, I wish they could both be on the team at the same time, and I don't think that's very likely for a variety of reasons. But the biggest thing with Clevin is that he's on a 2-way deal. Hamonic, like you mentioned, JBD, Brandstrom, all on 1-way. So if you want to pick Clevin over one of them, you have to risk losing them for nothing. You can't even send Hamonic down because of his contract. So it's really just not looking like a NHL start for Clevin. Like we said, though, he'll definitely be the first one called up in the event of an injury or something like that. We talked about that as well. So yeah, he has to knock the door down and basically make them decide. And I think it's fair to say in that first game, he didn't really make it much of a choice. Like, yeah, he might be right there-ish, but like he didn't play well enough to me. And he was paired with JBD. I'm thinking in the second period, especially in that Sunday game, I think they both had consecutive penalties that were kind of like lazy and not lazy, but just being caught behind the play. And just out of position kind of penalties. Like they weren't really debatable is what I mean. And they also struggled a couple other times in that second period specifically, which is when the Leafs really took it to the Sens. So yeah, like that battle for sure. I'm a little, obviously we still have to see Brandstrom, but like you mentioned, we know Brandstrom, we know what we're getting from him. So it's fair to say, especially that they've got him and Hamonic paired together already, pretty safe to say that they're going to be the starting bottom pair as well. Like I think a fair estimate for what the roster is going to be is Brandstrom, Hamonic, and then JBD starting as the 7th. You can sub JBD and Hamonic in. We'll see how that works. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait to see Eric Brandstrom. But other death battles, like, I mean, we haven't seen Korpisalo yet, so that'll be on tomorrow as well. Like
the 4th line's a good one too.
The 4th line's a good one because there's so many people. Like there's so many guys.
There are some takeaways from that first game too, I think.
For sure. And like, look, Parker Kelly, and so I think this is also fair because we maybe didn't give enough love to Mark Kastelic last season. The production wasn't there really offensively. Austin Watson, low key, 19 goals in 2 years as a fourth liner. That's not bad. It's kind of crazy to think about. He had a lot in bunches, I think,
This
and
guy loved the empty nets.
he really did like the empty nets almost as much as Alec DeBrincat. But he definitely provided some form of production on those the fourth line. And quite frankly, the Sens haven't really replaced it through free agency in their fourth line acquisitions. So the excuse me, what I'm saying for Mark Kastelic is, they switched their numbers, and like so did Parker Kelly, and it's like a little bit of a refresh. You can kind of look at them through a different lens if you want. Kastelic to me is still an A plus fourth line center in terms of he wins you faceoffs. He's a big guy. He can hit. He'll do what you need to do as a fourth line center. Give you 10 minutes a night. You're good. Parker Kelly, I know you agree with this. I like the guy. He's a great story. And quite honestly, in his rookie year, the year before last, I should say, when he played sparingly, I thought he was a great like fourth line player, good like a bulldog. Actually, honestly, in early in the year last year in October, uh, I want to say it was a game against Washington. Like they just dominated the third period, and it was that fourth line. It was Kelly, Kastelic, and Watson who went out and just hit everything that moved. The crowd got into it. Sens scored like 2 goals right after, and I was like, okay, that's what this fourth line is going to be. That's DJ Smith hockey. That fourth line was playing. Like I was like, okay, this can work this year. And then they never did it again and scored like 3 goals combined the rest of the season. So it just wasn't enough. And my point is, I didn't see enough from Parker Kelly in that game where it was more valuable than what Angus Crookshank could bring, or Josh Bailey, for instance. I think Josh Bailey is a much better option, much, much better than Parker Kelly on that fourth line. I don't really know if the Sens want Bailey on their fourth line, but the fact that they had him out there in a penalty killing role tells me they're ready to put him there. So what did you think about that? To me, it was more, that's kind of what I was focusing on depth wise. It was who's better between Kelly and Josh Bailey. And I liked Josh Bailey a lot more.
Yeah, so Kelly, I tweeted that out during the game because I was watching him, and I have to say, he's just so entertaining. Like, he's a very entertaining player because he's that old school. Like, if you watch the old school NHL, like, he goes around and he literally just, like, looks to kill people. Like, he looks to absolutely blow people up. It's a very fun style because, like, he usually throws clean hits, and he's a good hitter. Like, there was one where the Leafs won the faceoff back, and Kelly just like beelined at the defenseman. The defenseman tried to sidestep him, and he just like lined him up in open ice and rocked him at the blue line and got the puck. Like, he's actually like probably Ottawa's best hitter in regards to like the way he lines hits up and really throws his body around. And he had something stupid like we talked about him the other day with Sens Talk when Brandon was on. How Kelly had, I think, 96 games, and he had like 303 hits in those 96 games. Like, he's not afraid to be physical. The issue with Kelly is, again, like most of these fourth line physical guys, is production. And now it's not just production, but it's like it's puck management. You know what I mean? Like, your fourth line's going to dump and chase, but at some point they have to be able to sustain some pressure and not get hemmed into their own zone. And frankly, like last year, Kelly played 56 games, and like we kind of know who he is now, and he's fun, he's physical, that's awesome, he's great for a rebuilding team, but like you can't have your fourth line just getting hemmed in every shift. You should not have a fourth line that the other team is targeting constantly. Like teams were actively matching up their players against Ottawa's fourth line to the point where like you could see it visually. They would hold players off the ice until Ottawa put their fourth line on, and then they would just abuse them. Like, that shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't have liabilities like that. Your fourth line's not going to be as offensive, but they should be able to get the puck out. They can't be hemmed in there for 2 straight minutes consistently. Every now and then, sure, but like, for me in the first game, my biggest takeaway was that Kelly and McEwen did not look as good as several other depth players. And they've been running Kelly, Kastelic, and McEwen in camp, which means they're planning to run that in the regular season too. That's clearly their current iteration that they've got planned. So to me though, like in the first game, Igor Sokolov and Matthew Highmore were the best depth players for Ottawa. I thought that they looked really good. I liked Bailey too. I thought he had a good game. He had an assist on the first goal, on Brady's goal, and he did well. I'm just still wary about him because he does not throw like hits at all. He's not physical. He's not gritty, but he does play on the penalty kill, so he has some, like, he's been a good defensive player in his days, so he could fit there, and I do think he's going to earn a contract if we're making predictions, because when the coaches the coaches came out and they actually said that they are pulling for Josh Bailey to get a contract, which means he's probably going to get a contract. Like, they have to clear the money because it's $775 now is the league minimum, so he'd probably sign for that for 1 year. But again, they don't have Pinto signed, and that's another near million they have to spend. So that's more money. Like if Joseph goes, right, then you've probably got the space for both, maybe, but it's still going to be tight. Regardless, I thought Bailey looked good. But yeah, my depth players, I thought Sokolov looked really good. He was one I was watching. Didn't get a ton of opportunity, but he looked strong. On Timmy's, I want to say his second goal, maybe his first, it was all Sokolov and Yuri Shmekal. They dominated. I posted the clip. You can go find it on Twitter. Sokolov, like, he was putting in work. He won like 3 straight puck battles in the offensive zone and then got the puck back to Timmy. And he ended up sniping it. And like Sokolov didn't get an assist, but he should have because he made everything happen on that shift. I thought he looked better skating. He looked more just smoother. He was turning better, and he was making things happen with the puck. So I thought he looked really good. Yuri Shmekal was another one. He looked good. He looked massive on the ice, like when you see him in person, because this is his first time we've seen him. Looks like a monster, huge. I did find he was a little, like, he wasn't quite there with the pace, I didn't think yet. There was a few plays he was behind the play, caught a little bit, wasn't getting back as hard. But again, he's used to that smaller ice now in Europe, so we give him a little bit of a breathing room there to get used to it. Still won some puck battles, very strong on his stick. Thought he was making things happen in the offensive zone. Someone else to watch for sure. But like I said, I think for me it was Highmore and Sokolov. Highmore was just like a little dart all over the ice making things happen. The announcers called him out a few times too for playing so well because he was creating things. He had a breakaway, I think, too. Didn't score, but he looked really good. Looked like almost like Matthew Joseph in a way where he's just so fast, but he's also physical and he's getting in there. He's winning battles. So looked really good. You said before we started, Matthew Joseph looked really good. He was one that stood out to you. I thought he looked good as well. He was fast, and it sucks because he's probably going to get traded. I also tweeted out that like him and Kubalik are almost competing against each other, it feels like, because Kubalik, like, he'd be a lot easier to trade, but he's also like a 2-time 20 goal scorer, 20 plus goal scorer. So like I'd rather keep him over Joseph, but at the same time, like if it's going to cost a first round pick, or there was a rumor, but Elliot Friedman talked about it, how Philadelphia wants Tyler Boucher to go along with Matthew Joseph, so then you're losing 2 decent players there, right? Oh, I didn't even know you had the update there, but we can get into that in a little bit. But yeah, Anthony DeMarco, a Flyers beat writer, he came out and said that the Flyers wanted Tyler Boucher as part of the deal for Matthew Joseph, which was the sweetener. Other reporters have said it would be a first-round pick. Regardless, the price is high. I don't think Ottawa wants to move a guy like Boucher. If it comes down to Boucher or a first-round pick, I know which one I'm taking, but at the same time, like, Kubalik's so much easier to trade, so maybe if Joseph has a really good camp, like, that changes the way that Ottawa looks at this, and they decide, well, I think Joseph could come, we could save our first-round pick or a top prospect for us, and we could move Kubalik instead, right? Like I said, I'd rather keep Kubalik, and I think Kubalik's another standout from the game last night. He looked excellent, had 2 points, including a goal, looked really, really smooth and really good, so someone I liked, but Joseph did too, and it would suck to lose either one of them. Regardless, though, yeah, back to the depth battle, because that's what we're on here. We're kind of bouncing around. I've got a lot of thoughts bouncing around my head. But yeah, I thought that Kelly and McEwen too. Like McEwen, I thought he threw a few hits, but he looked behind the play. He did literally nothing with the puck. Had a lot of turnovers. Every time he touched the puck, he just fire it in and then not go get it. So I wasn't huge on either of them. McEwen obviously signed for 3 years this summer. I don't know. We'll see what the fourth line looks like. But I was more impressed by Sokolov, Highmore, Schmeichel. Cruikshank last night was another good one. He had a good game. I was more impressed by those 4 players than I was by Kelly or McEwen, which is not what I like to see, to be honest with you, because I know they're going to start the season with like Kelly and McEwen playing games. I can just sense it with DJ Smith. So not what I like to see, but at the same time, I think hopefully Pierre Dorion is smart enough to realize that these guys probably deserve a spot on the roster over some of the guys that we've seen in years past.
Yeah, like I threw up the Shane Pinto update thing there because it all ties together. It really does, doesn't it? Because when you think about it with what we saw, and like you're assuming Pinto will be there at some point, like he's there. That's his spot, third line center. That's his spot. And then you got Kubalik and Joseph there. Like man, watching both of them last night, they have some chemistry too. It hurts. It really does. It does hurt. And they look great. Joseph was one of my standouts. Honestly, I just didn't really want to, because I'm going to get into the Pinto thing in a second here because, like I said, it ties in with the depth battle. So, yeah, they've got Kaslik, Kelly, and McEwen as a camp line right now. You've also got Boko Imama from last night. I actually liked his game. I know, he didn't really affect much, but if you're going to have an enforcer in the lineup, I'd prefer him over McEwen. He's just bigger. Seems like a better skater, actually, too, which is kind of crazy. Like, he's just a big guy, clearly in great shape as well. So, with all these depth battles, right? And let's assume I'm going to take Joseph out of the lineup because we've been doing it all summer, and like I'll explain why him over Kubalik makes sense in terms of trading. But all the guys you just listed, like even Yarventi looked good at center last night. He had a goal obviously early on. So you got Yarventi, Crookshank, Imama. I'm blanking on people,
Sokolov,
but
Highmore,
Sokolov, Ridley Gregg, like all these players. Because if you got Josh Bailey coming in, Ridley Gregg might have to fight for a little bit of a spot as well. Like you think about it like that, all those guys, you have to be able to come up with something better than Kelly, Kaslik, and McEwen. So I know that that's what they're penciling in and probably what they're penciling in. But to me, like I think we've talked about it since it happened. McEwen as a 13th forward who can sub in here and there, play when there's injuries, but not a long-term top 12 guy, I'm fine with. But you need to have more, and maybe that's what Josh Bailey signing is for. To me, I don't know how they would look at Ridley Gregg right now. We didn't even talk about him. He played great last night too, I thought. Had that great play in overtime. Like it looked like a nothing play, but that's a smart hockey play. He had no speed going in on a 2-on-1, had a back checker coming, shoot for the pass. Like I think they're coaching now to not do that because it like shoot to score, whatever. It was a clear shot for a pass. You got a guy driving hard. It's old school hockey. It really is. Like it's the science. Play the pillow. So with all those guys, you have to come up with something better than Kelly, Kaslik, McEwen. I still do think it's Kaslik's spot. Like I think that center depth of Stützle, Norris, Pinto, Kaslik is pretty great, and they're all young. Like it's a great lineup. But the wingers, you got to come up with something better than that because like you said, that fourth line is going to get exposed all the time. And it's not even a secret now. So again, it's still preseason. I want to watch the rest of it, but the longer we go into preseason, the more I am not excited that the Shane Pinto thing is going to take away from what we're seeing. Because like I said, I love Matthew Joseph last night. I was on his side. Like, I don't want to say on his side. It wasn't very divisive or whatever, but he had a bad year in terms of production last year. So immediately people write off the contract. But hearing this, like they need a sweetener thing. And I agree with everyone saying it's ridiculous because he's still a great player and a great contract, quite honestly, for a third line. If you get a third liner for under $3 million who can be on the PK and be a bit of a buzzsaw around, you think of even a rebuilding team who can throw them in your top six and expect pretty good results for the next 3 years at $3 million. To me, that's just NHL teams trying to swindle Pierre Dorion and try and get as much as they can because they know he's up against the clock and he waited so long. So we're running long here a little bit, but we can go into Michael Landauer on 1200 as well, like talking about all that stuff. It's a lot to talk about. It's new for us. All right. We're trying to break down Sens hockey here on a podcast, the first time ever. But the thing with Pinto, I'm going to tell you why it has to be Matthew Joseph that gets traded. If you trade Kubalik, okay, and then you want to sign Josh Bailey, let's say that's going to happen. That's what, like Pinto, Kubalik makes 2.5. You need that's 775 for Bailey. Pinto is going to get what, 1.75 from that? They don't have any cap space. That's not enough money. They
wouldn't be able to sign Bailey. Brandstrom too.
If they trade Brandstrom, which a lot of people are throwing around, I put out a Matthew Joseph tweet last night because I was in pain watching how well he was playing, and all the replies were like, "Oh, Brandy's gone." No, he's not, because if you trade Brandstrom, Pinto's not taking less than $2 million. You still don't have enough room, so it has to be Matthew Joseph. It has to. He's the only one who makes financial sense. Obviously, you can go high. You can talk about Drake Batherson, but in terms of who you would actually move, it has to be Joseph, contract wise. No one else makes sense other than, like you said, Zub or Anton Forsberg. Like that's the list. So it sucks because he looks great. He looks fast. So maybe the better Joseph plays in camp, the more they can convince teams like, hey, just give us a 4th round pick or a 5th round pick for him straight up, and we'll do that. Call it business. Because Shane Pinto is not taking anything less than 2.5 million, especially at this point. He's now missing camp, and it has nothing to do with him. He's not holding out. It's not like, I want to make that clear. I don't think anyone's doing it, but in case there are people, this is like 0% Shane Pinto's fault. In 2021, 2 years ago, when Brady Tkachuk held out, you could probably say that was 50-50. Brady Tkachuk held out for what he wanted, and he got it, whatever. Shane Pinto is not holding out into camp for a $2.5 million contract. He's doing it because they have no cap space. That's the holdup right now. And I know Dorion said in the press conference, I'm going off about Dorion again because he put them in the spot. Make no mistake, it's on him. Him saying in the introductory press conference, it's more about getting a contract done. That's what we're worried about. No, it's not. Get out of here with that. This is a player who scored 20 goals. He's on the end of his entry-level contract. Every single player on this team got term and got a bag, except for Shane Pinto. Drake Batherson, no hesitation, 6-year deal. Josh Norris, one great season, 8-year, $8 million deal. Shane Pinto is getting absolutely screwed. And I think that's completely fair to say right now. So anyone who might be, and I went off there for no reason, anyone who might be concerned that Pinto's holding out for every last penny, you're wrong, because he's worth more than 2.5. And I think it's fair for him to expect that, and his agent as well. So I don't know if that's a narrative that's being put out there at all. I'm just speculating. I'm doing the classic get mad at something that's someone that's not even saying anything. But I think that should be clear. I know it has to be Joseph. It has to. There's not enough room for does Joseph even clear up enough room for Bailey and Pinto?
I think at the end of the day, like if Ottawa has to make a hard decision and not sign Bailey, then that should be like if you're gonna make this a thing so that like Pinto's gonna miss regular season games because you want to sign Josh Bailey and you don't have enough room, like that should not be the case. If it comes down to the wire here, like you're ultimately fine without Josh Bailey. He's not a key contributor. Like you can easily, we just mentioned like 6 different players who can do the almost the exact same thing as Josh Bailey. So I'm really not concerned over that. But like we know, obviously the Sens are gonna try and sign Bailey, and I think that it would be tough even just with Joseph moving, right? Because if they move Joseph, that they've got what, like 3.05 million in cap space, which is like, I don't know, like that's enough. Pinto would get 2.3 and Bailey would get 775, like that. I don't even know if that's enough for Pinto. So it would be interesting. I did write an article on everydaysens.com yesterday discussing the different options here, and I got a little creative and had like 5 different players they could move. But again, like as you said, I mean, even just moving like Kubalik, if you're moving Kubalik, for example, and again, he'd probably be the easier to trade than Joseph, but that's only 2.5 million, so they'd have 2.6 with the 100,000 they have right now. That's enough for Pinto and only Pinto. Like you're not getting Josh Bailey with that as well. There's no way. Not that you have to, but like if they want to, then that could be another thing holding this up. You made a good point about how maybe other teams, like, because Joseph, if he has a really good camp, maybe they'll think of him a little bit differently. I think teams do value him. Like the report with what we talked about earlier with Anthony DeMarco from the Flyers had the report about how they wanted Tyler Boucher. Like Elliot Friedman added to that and said the people he talked to from Philadelphia, they see Joseph as a good player. Like they value him. They think there's a good role for him in Philly. But like Ottawa's screwed themselves. Like that's really it. They've kind of put themselves, and Andlauer came out and said the same thing. They put themselves in a pickle. Like those were his words. He said, we put ourselves in a pickle with this Pinto situation. And they did. I mean, they committed money, and this is what I said in the article, is they committed money to players without having a contract in place for Pinto. And we said it at the time. I remember when Tarasenko signed, and I love that they signed Tarasenko. I do, and Korpisalo too. But I said, like, I'm hoping that Pierre Dorion has done his homework and has talked to Shane Pinto about this and said, like kind of preemptively agreed on a deal and that they will have the money for him. As it turns out, it does not seem like that happened, and he just kind of left Pinto in the background and didn't really talk to him or converse with him at all, which sucks. And Pinto is getting screwed. He's a little late to the party because if he was here a couple years ago, he probably would have got paid after a 20-goal rookie season. Instead, he's kind of stuck waiting and missing camp. And of course, for someone who's had injury problems in the past, I'm sure, I don't know what their thought is on that, but I'm sure he'd like to get into some action before the season and kind of get prepared before he's, going to go out to the regular season where it's like crazy fast and physical and people are throwing big hits. I'm sure he wants to get into some action, but yeah, Joseph, I think, is definitely the one to go. It's going to be tough to move a key asset. Another point I made in that article, too, was that perhaps, like, there's a little bit of an insurance thing going on here. So, for one, if somebody in Ottawa suffers, an unfortunate long-term injury, say, in the preseason or in camp, then maybe they go on LTIR, and now you've got space, right? And it would suck, obviously, but at the same time, imagine if you trade Joseph in a first-round pick, and the next day Josh Norris suffers a long-term injury, and now you've lost, like, everything. And you're in this horrible spot, right? So maybe they're waiting a little bit. They've got something set up. Another thing is like the opposite side of that coin is maybe somebody on a different team suffers an injury, right? Like what if somebody loses, a contender loses somebody and suddenly they're desperate for somebody to come in and be like a second, third line forward for them. Joseph could serve that role probably better than most players around the league. Like if they lose somebody who's kind of key and they need to replace him with someone who's not just a fourth line player, Joseph is the guy who can come in and do that. So maybe Ottawa gets a little bit lucky and somebody, not lucky, I don't want to say that about injuries, but maybe somebody gets hurt and then like they're desperate and they call Ottawa and they say, listen, we'll accept a deal for Joseph and we'll give you like a late round pick and whatever, just get it done because they're desperate, right? So that could be another thing that Dorion's doing, but ultimately it's pretty risky to bank on somebody getting hurt because that's just like it's I don't know if that has good odds of happening. So we'll see. Either way, I think it just needs to get done. I think Pierre put himself in this situation, and now he's got to resolve it. Like, that's all it is. Pinto's kind of just taking the brunt of it here because I totally agree with you. It's not his fault. Nobody should be blaming him. Thankfully, I haven't really seen many people blame him, which is good. Because like he's not even holding out for a lot of money. Really, he's probably worth more than he'll ultimately get. Like, I bet he's gonna get 2 to 2.5 million. Like, that'll probably be what they settle on. I think he could easily get like 3.5 million elsewhere, just based on the season he had last year. And so yeah, I'm. It sucks for him, and it kind of sucks for the Sens too, just because you can't afford a slow start, and having this situation happen, having Pinto not playing, is a great way to set yourselves up for failure yet again, which is truly unfortunate for the team this year.
I do want to point out just quickly, there's a few things here. And actually, I'm not even mad about going long. This is worth it. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe just before we wrap up here. So Ridley Gregg, again, we didn't really mention him. He was really good in the faceoff dot last night, I believe. I know that this is worst case Ontario, but if they have to go into the year without Pinto, I'm comfortable. I'm personally, I can say I'm comfortable with Ridley Gregg as a third center temporarily. Prefer him on the wing this year, but I was going through Sens cap friendly, and there's a couple things here. So I wanted to look at how much space they officially have right now with Norris on IR, but not LTIR. They've got 120,000 available. That's with Josh Bailey on a PTO. They have Sokolov on the lineup, McEwen, Parker Kelly. Those are their 11 forwards, I guess. Anyway, a Joseph trade at 2.95 million would give them, quick math, 3.1 ish, 3.2. That's enough to get Pinto and add another contract kind of thing, right? That's plenty to do a league minimum plus Pinto. Kubalik would give you 2.6, 2.7-ish. I don't think that's enough to get both done. You'd probably have to cut ties with Josh Bailey. So yeah, it's still possible. I believe you can get Pinto in around that number. But like you mentioned, it's not his fault that he's holding out. And the longer this goes, when you ask for more money, like if you can, you got to squeeze everything you can. Because let's not forget, this is a guy who's, he's made a lot of money already, but he's not getting paid right now. It's been a few months. He doesn't have a paycheck coming in. He's literally unemployed as it stands right now. He's not under, like, I don't know how it all works, but he's not getting paid. So that sucks for Shane Pinto. A younger guy, obviously, like money is money, but like you're living on your own. You're thinking about probably, I bet she's going into this summer thinking, I got to buy myself a place in Ottawa. Like I got to figure all that out, be an adult. He's not getting paid, so he can't do that right now. He's also not here. Another thing though, like they go and sign Brandstrom on the first day of free agency to a 1 year, $2 million deal like that. And I'm like, okay, Pinto's next up, nothing. And maybe it took a little bit longer than Pierre wanted. He got sidetracked with the Brinkett stuff. Tarasenko came available, Korpisalo. Like he was busy in July, and maybe he didn't think that the negotiations would be that hard with Pinto. So maybe that's part of it, but it's just ridiculous to me. Like everyone knows what he's worth, and this narrative that they're holding out because of the contract, which is what the team is kind of spinning, I don't buy it at all, and I don't think it's fair. So again, we'll watch Matthew Joseph. The other thing I want to mention quickly from the cap friendly, I think it might have just happened while we were recording here. It looks like they sent down Thomas Hamara and Jorian Donovan to junior. So I believe a round of cuts has happened for camp. Usually just the junior players, but it doesn't say anything about, I mean, who are the other junior players they had with them? Like, I think that kind of tops the list in terms of high names, right? That was on the team in camp.
Andonovski as well, Matthew Andonovski.
Okay, did he? Yeah, did they send it? It's not on. Okay, it doesn't say it's on cap friendly right now, but
Connor Clattenburg and Jackson Stewart also got released from their amateur tryouts, who were two guys from rookie camp.
Okay. So a little bit of movement here for Sens camp, and I'm wondering if they'll announce a roster at some point today. But that's as of we're finishing recording this. This will be posted at some point today as well, so you can digest it. Sit down. It can be tonight. It can be tomorrow on Wednesday. And we'll wrap up there, Brennan. I think that's a pretty good episode. Look, I'll pat ourselves on the back. That's our first coverage of actual Ottawa Senators hockey. I think we did a pretty good job. That's a great hour-long pod. We're back to the hour-long pods. So thanks everyone for watching. That's been the Everyday Sens podcast. That's been episode 42. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube page. We just hit 1,100 subscribers, I should say, on YouTube. So thank you for that. We're on the road to 2K. We're getting to 2K. How about by the end of the season? You think that's a fair estimate, or should we even put that on now?
No,
Like a
the end of the season's probably good. We like to give ourselves a cushion and then get
We
there
do.
early.
I was thinking it's too soon, but I like what you're thinking. I think we can get there. Maybe by Christmas. No, I'm kidding. Let's do 2K by the end of the year. That's our goal. So subscribe to the YouTube page and subscribe to everydaysens.com. I keep saying it. I'm going to write. I will. There will be stuff to talk about during the year. So everyone head over there for some more in-depth analysis. And that's been it. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you on the weekend at some point.